Welcome back, everybody, to the newest episode of PenPodcast.com. I'm your host, Matthew Harms, founder of Pen for Hire, where we offer premier ghostwriting and author coaching services. Also the founder of the Pen Podcast, where we sit with authors, writers, writing industry professionals, subject matter experts, and all-around interesting people. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by #1 international best-selling author of the post-COVID marketing machine, Guy Powell. How are you today, Guy?
Matt, great. Great to be here. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure. I'm happy you were able to join us on this. It's Thursday afternoon for me. Where are you about joining us from?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. Where are you, Matt?
I'm right outside of New York City.
Oh, fantastic.
So we're actually in the same time zone.
Yep. And just recovering from the elections.
There's never really any recovery from that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, ours hasn't stopped yet. We still have to go through December 6th with the runoff,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to make it a point of never discussing politics or religion unless it's in writing, where I don't have to just keep going.
Well, I would like to point out one thing, and this is not political because I agree with you. I definitely don't want that. But the level of advertising spend, which is obviously important to me because I'm a marketer, for the elections, for this recent election, over the last 3 months was roughly about maybe 200 million just for the senatorial race. Now, 200 million in Georgia represents 7% of the market. So therefore, at a national basis, that would be roughly $250 million of spend over three months. At 7% is then about $2.5 to $3 billion. Now that's 3 months. Over a year, you multiply that times 4, you're at $12 billion, roughly equivalent to a national advertiser. Guess who the biggest national advertiser is?
Oh, the RNC and the DNC.
Well, no, fair enough. But I mean, as a company and as a brand.
I don't know.
I'll tell you, it was Geico. They spent maximum $2 billion. And in Georgia alone, over those last 3 months, they spent the equivalent of $12 billion, 6 times what Geico would spend. It's crazy how much we saw.
We're going to get to your book, but since you went there, I'm going to leave it at this. I do a lot of writing about, I am not political. I think the whole system is broken. But if we took the amount of money that both national conventions spend, we could cure world hunger.
That is very true. That is very true.
Only to elect the lesser of two evils. So I've got a huge problem with the way that works. But as a marketer, I'm glad you pointed out the dollars because I never looked at it from that perspective. And you can't turn on anything. Geico is everywhere. Their banners, their pop-up ads. In fact, after we get off this call, I'm sure I'm going to get an advertisement for Geico because it's listening to us.
Yep, absolutely. Well, so my book and what we do is we worry about advertising spend and the ROI, the return on marketing investment for that advertising spend. And so that's why I kind of always look at what I think they're spending and how well they're doing. And that's kind of where then that comment came from. So, I'm always looking at that. And I hate to say it, my wife hates it. I'll be pointing stuff out on an ad. We're watching TV and she says, "Guy, just shut up."
So everyone in my world hates it too, because I'm the first one watching a commercial or reading something. And I'm like, that's not grammatically correct. Or they spelt that wrong. When you do something, when you live, eat, breathe, and sleep something, you can't not just point it out. It comes natural.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, I look at who's in the ads. So we get all these drug commercials and whatever, and mostly women, mostly men, mostly young, mostly old. You can tell exactly who they're targeting with the drug or with the product or with the service. It's pretty interesting to watch the ads and see what they have in the pictures, and then how you can interpret what they're actually trying to do.
Again, completely off topic, but since you said it, I've always wondered how these companies justify ad spend on drugs to the consumer, because I can't prescribe myself a drug.
Well, first of all, that's what we do, is we help them justify their advertising. Number one, that's the most important thing. And certainly if you're going to build a marketing machine where you want to make sure that every dollar you invest works, drives ROI. Number two, what they're really doing is they want you as the consumer or as the patient to go to the doctor and say, "Hey, I've got these symptoms. It's just like that commercial. Do I have that disease?" And then that's how this is all playing out. We did some work for a pharmaceutical company that had a new drug for migraine headaches. And I will admit, I never, until I saw the statistics, I never realized how bad it is. But sometimes a migraine headache can be debilitating. You can't work, you can't do anything, and yet here you have a drug that could be very successful. In their case, it was maybe 75% successful, but 75% of the people in an enormous patient set makes a huge difference.
Yeah. One of the things I always laugh about, and I'm curious from your perspective as the marketer, is you'll see an advertisement for a drug that, let's say it's for migraines, but then they list the potential side effects. And it's like, could cause and even death. And now all of a sudden I'm like, my migraine doesn't feel so bad.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, and you're right about that. There's one I was just listening to the other day, and probably more than half the commercial was on the side effects, including death, of course. But I will admit, the disease or the treatment that it was providing for the disease or the illness or whatever it was really bad. And so you either have one bad thing or you have the risk of another. So it's the patient has to make that decision, and the media and the advertising then, at least by providing you the information that there is something out there, that there is potentially a trade-off. I think that's where the value comes in. So not that I'm a 100% fan of advertising in all cases, but I think in that case it really does provide a real value.
No, and I love that you have that professional input of, hey, see both sides of the coin, because when you're not in marketing per se, you can tend to just look at it and laugh and say, that's ridiculous. Who would do this? But when you bring out the positives, I guess I can see if it's helping anybody and they're still giving you the disclaimer and you're going to talk to a professional about it, it makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. No, and especially for drugs, I think it does make sense most of the time. And but for other products and services, there's no question that I need to make people aware of my brand if I'm a new brand, or I need to make them aware of a new feature, or I need to make them aware of a new price or a buy one get one or whatever, so that there is really in my opinion, there is true value, although sometimes can be misleading, but there is true value to the message that's in that ad for the consumer set that they're targeting.
Got it. So let's bring this back to you. How long have you been in marketing?
I've been in now, 20, 25 years, definitely going back a ways. And I was a consultant. I was a business consultant for a while. And then from there, I went into marketing, and applying then the business consulting kind of rigor, as well as the critical thinking to marketing problems, is really what led me to being very successful. I very quickly made it to be global VP of a mid-sized company, VP of marketing. And then from there went off on my own, and applying now those consulting and rigor and other kind of capabilities that I had learned to now marketing, to be able to say, is my marketing working? And then with that, now I've written 4 or 5 books. My last one, as I mentioned, the Post-COVID Marketing Machine. And Post-COVID Marketing Machine is now not only to help to give you a positive ROI from your marketing, but to make sure that it's predictable, accountable, and repeatable. As the CEO or the C-suite, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to say, okay, here's 10 million, here's 100 million. How much sales am I going to get from that? And I want to know reasonably accurately to be able to say, yep, I'm going to get $1 billion or $2 billion in sales off of that money. And therefore, I'm willing to invest. Otherwise, why would I do it? Why would I invest a nickel in marketing unless I knew I was going to get a return? And so that's what the CEOs for these larger companies are asking for. And that's why they need this machine with, like I said, predictable, accountable, repeatable kind of results out of your marketing investments.
So I'm kind of curious, do you give those insights and secrets away in the Post-COVID Marketing Machine?
Well, I give case studies and I give methods.
Okay.
Certainly, I can't give it to a specific company, because each and every company is different. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And I often get asked questions like, well, what's the benchmark for marketing success for a TV ad? And the difference is, or the reason why you can't answer that is that, okay, well, I'm selling, let's say, some M&Ms worth whatever it is, $2.89 a pack, versus I'm selling a car, $28,000 a car. So for the same ad, the equation and the effort and the activity and the consumer behavior that responds to that is totally different. Selling a $28,000 or $280,000 car versus a $2.89 pack of M&Ms.
I mean, I would imagine also somewhere in that equation is the markup percentage, right? Because you may be M&Ms may be making 50% for every pack they sell, but that only equates to $1.45, whereas BMW is only making 7% per car.
Absolutely. And that all comes into the equation. And that's why one of the things that's really also critical, and I don't know, this is maybe a nit, but with M&Ms, for example, you might see a buy 3 get 1 free. So that's a 25% discount. Will that promotion work for M&Ms, right? But you're not going to go into BMW and do a buy 3 cars and get 1 free. I mean, I wish I could do that, but it's not going to happen.
You have to have a very niche clientele, like the CEO of multi-million-dollar organizations who's buying his whole C-suite BMWs. Like, let's do that this year.
Hey, that's right. That's what I aspire to.
So I'm curious and if this is off topic, let me know. But in this day and age, there are so many people, companies, services offering different kinds of marketing advice, right? You've got SEO, you've got Google Ads. Everyone wants to tell you that they can help you increase your revenue. How do you know who's real and who's not? I mean, obviously outside of you being you and you being real.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not me. This is Memorex. Sorry, that's an old one. But in any case, we're actually one layer above that. So we are looking at all of the different marketing activities that are taking place across the spectrum, whether it's TV, you mentioned SEO, search engine marketing, paid social, organic social, digital advertising, connected TV, you name it. We work across all of them. And our goal and our output is then to be able to say, for every dollar of TV that I spent, I got a certain ROI. For every dollar of search engine optimization, I got a certain ROI. With that information, then I can either do one of two things. I can either then go back to the guy that said, hey, I can help your SEO, and say, hey, you didn't do that good. You got to do better. Figure out what you're doing wrong. Let's get that better, because TV is giving me a better ROI. Or I could say, well, listen, what are we even spending any money for on SEO? Let's cut it back maybe by 50%. Or cut it back by 75% and take that money and put it into TV, because I'm getting a better ROI over there. And so those are really kind of the two big support mechanisms that we provide through when we build our marketing machine.
Got it. So it sounds like you're not the guys out there buying the ads, and you're more managing the overall strategy of where to place and who to use.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. And looking at the mix, and then looking at what went wrong, what went right, and then being able to diagnose what went wrong and what went right. So, for example, we're just working with a company now, and they're having some trouble with their paid social. It was doing great last year, and we're now in the process of trying to figure out why all of a sudden in this last quarter it's doing so badly. One of the things we think is happening is that the elections got in the way. The massive amount of money spent in Q3 on the elections now detracted from the brands trying to make their own money off of their paid social. And so they weren't able to get their ROI. And we're thinking that might be at least one big contributing factor to the reason why their paid social didn't work.
It's an interesting discovery or hypothesis. And I'm wondering if you kind of determine that it's most likely true. Do you think during next election periods, companies will just halt spending?
Well, that's why you need a marketing machine. If you don't mind me continuing to pitch.
No, please. That's why you're here.
Marketing machine. Yeah.
I'm a writing machine, not a marketing machine.
Well, the idea then is, okay, so the C-suite says, hey, the stockholders, the shareholders, the board gave us a target. We've got to make $50 billion in revenue, and we got to make $10 billion in profit. 50 million in revenue, 10 million, whatever the numbers are. And all of a sudden, we were counting on our paid social working. And all of a sudden, in this case, wow, our paid social isn't working. How do we get our numbers back up? Well, they need to know where to spend. So they're going to say, well, paid social isn't working anymore, but maybe connected TV is. So let's monitor it very closely, like a machine. Let's monitor it very closely. Watch then the paid social results go down, and say, man, something's going on here. We think it might be the elections. Looks like connected TV might work better. Let's shift that spending around as soon as possible so that we can get as close as we can to what our target is for Q3, and then potentially recover that in Q4 so that we can still get our bonuses, our stock price will go up, and the shareholders and the board will be happy.
Love it. So I'm going to backtrack here for a minute because this is your 5th book. So when did you write your first book, and why? What prompted you to write it?
Yeah, exactly. So right after the tech bust, I was let go. I was, it happened, right? And I, first of all, told myself, I am not going to sit here idly and do nothing. And I had just built a marketing machine basically for my client, my company. So I took then what I learned and I put it into a book. It was called Return on Marketing Investment. And it was the early stages of that. Then from there, a couple of years later, I was doing a lot of training. I was training all over the world, speaking all over the world, and loving the travel and stuff like that. And then I said, from what I learned from my training, I now need to write another book. And then I wrote Marketing Calculator. Then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, social media was really a big deal. And everybody was asking, well, what's the value of a like? I don't know if you remember that, but everybody I talked to, well, Guy, if you're an ROI, what's the value of a like, on Facebook? And so then I wrote a book called The ROI of Social Media. And I had 2 other co-authors that were really good at social media. And so that was that one. And then a couple of years later, I wrote Marketing Machine, because then the process had progressed to where it wasn't just being able to measure the ROI and make some small adjustments. The real issue was whether I could make the changes, but make them in a predictable way, accountable way, and in a repeatable way. And so that was the reason then for my Marketing Machine book. And then now the post-COVID Marketing Machine, because the world changed, consumer behavior changed, and everything changed. And then that was the purpose of the post-COVID Marketing Machine.
So I've got a few questions, but I'm going to take the most recent one since I didn't even write it down yet. Obviously, we all know from a consumer and a daily life standpoint that things have changed. From a marketing standpoint, right? So you have this machine that was working pre-COVID. What needed to be tweaked to fit the post-COVID world?
Yeah, and I think if the machine was done correctly, then relatively little. However, in reality, there were a handful of tweaks, and they really revolve around three things. Most importantly, at a top level, it's consumer behavior changed. And consumer behavior changed in 3 ways. The first was consumer purchase behavior changed. So, for example, I remember sitting right here at my desk and during COVID, and the stores had opened up, and I needed something for my office here. And I said, well, let me just go into the store. I'll run over to Walmart and I'll go pick it up. I get into my car. I drive up to the top of the street and I say to myself, what am I doing in the car? I'll just go on Amazon and I'll buy it on Amazon. So I turn around, I come back, I log into Amazon, boom, I buy it, and I got it the next day. And so right there, the consumer purchase behavior changed in a big way. It moved from brick and mortar over to online, and especially across just about all the segments. Prior to that, you'd have the millennials and the younger folks, the Gen Zs. They'd have already been buying just about everything online, and now even the Gen Xs and the Boomers were now starting to be forced to buy stuff online. So consumer purchase behavior. The second one is consumer media consumption behavior. I don't know about you, but we started binging different shows, on Apple and on Prime and on whatever. And so all of a sudden our behavior changed. We weren't watching, television and entertainment the way we were. And so because of that, And also, by the way, sports went away. One of our clients, that was their primary advertising vehicle, was to advertise in college football and baseball and golf and tennis. They're all gone. So the consumer media consumption behavior changed, and the brands had to reconfigure what they were doing. And then the last thing is the consumer response behavior. I think because of COVID, just about everybody's sitting there with their phone now, or maybe even, I think more so. They're sitting there with their phone or their laptop or their iPad watching TV or doing whatever. And as soon as they see an interesting ad, they go online and type in, the brand name or whatever it is, .com, blah, 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 and they're online. And that behavior also changed. So the three things changed from a consumer behavior perspective: the purchase behavior, the media consumption behavior, and then the media response behavior. And that's then described in the book as really what changed due to COVID. And then now post-COVID, and I think even as we kind of mature out of the post-COVID area, then that change will then start to shift back maybe a little bit, but most of it will probably be pretty well ingrained into all of our behaviors.
So it's interesting that you said move back a little bit. As I was writing a question for you, and this may be out of your scope, I'm only bringing it up because we have two different clients writing two different books, neither one in marketing, but very much on the future of sales and the future of other areas of business due to the rise of Web3 and the metaverse. So do you foresee, I mean, I guess this is a stupid question. Maybe it's not, because things change all the time. But are you foreseeing, or are you hearing anything from clients and advertisers who are already looking forward to that shift?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's going to take a while, though, but absolutely. So there's been a couple of companies that have been building presences on in the metaverse, and they're learning fast, whether it's successful or not, but they're learning fast, which is critical. And even Walmart built a presence. Wendy's built a presence. Mini is building a presence. A lot of brands are already building presences out there because I think they realize that if they were late to the internet game 20, 30 years ago, they don't want to be late to Web 3.0, the metaverse this time. And I think the goal is not necessarily to buy stuff yet. It's more a question of, can I build engagement, and with that engagement, build the brand. So one of the things that one of the examples, and I can't remember the car company that's doing it, they are targeting, I think it's Hyundai. They are targeting young kids. So less, in the 10, 12, 14-year-old age, pre-buyers of cars. They're not about anywhere near buying a car, but they are building the brand of Hyundai to them so that when they get 5 or 10 years older, then the brand image of Hyundai will still be with them when they're actually ready to buy a new car.
Wow. Talk about the long play.
Yeah. But I think, though, what'll happen, though, is, those folks, those kids will age in to the market. And so the brands need to follow that aging in as those kids and teens get older and what have you. And then they move into actually buying stuff. Now, and I don't know if you know this, but one of the hardest groups or one of the hardest segments of people to reach are young males. So in the ages from, let's say, 18 to 30. Well, a lot of them, they're hard to reach because they're in the metaverse, or they're on, doing something on, in gaming or whatever it happens to be. So already there's a segment of the population that I can now reach through the metaverse. And then so the brands then that are targeting that age group and that gender then will now find the ability to actually reach them. They can't reach them with most other marketing channels, but they can potentially now reach them through the metaverse.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for helping me realize my question wasn't as stupid as I thought as I said it. I want to jump back here to something I wrote before. So now that you've got 5 books, one of which is an international bestseller, how can you quantify how having them has helped your business?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's immediate credibility that I know what I'm talking about, and for the company that when we do something, that we are absolutely doing something with some rigor behind it. So there's one thing that we do, and we just landed a new client, and the first step is to build out their data. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but one of the concepts in there is how we are starting that project with them is to use that data concept called the data framework directly with them. And it makes the whole process easy, clear, easy to understand, and readily digestible by marketers that are really not that much interested in numbers. I mean, yes, of course they are, but they don't really get into the next level of detail in terms of the analytics and all of the other stuff that goes with it. And when they see, some of these simple concepts or concepts that have been simplified, they get it right away. And it really, really does help to make their business much more successful.
I love it. And I kind of inferred it must have been helping, because otherwise you would have stopped at book 1 or book 2. That you really are just a glutton for punishment.
Yes, I am a glutton for punishment.
It's like someone's going to read this one. Another question I'm really curious about, and maybe it had no impact at all, but hitting #1 international bestseller is no easy feat. How much, if at all, did your marketing background help you in driving that achievement?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we invested a lot of time and money in going after that. Now, I will admit, whether that actually helps me to sell more consulting projects, probably not. So it's probably more of an ego thing, and certainly something, though, that you can talk about to your to prospective clients when you're saying, hey, here's this book, here's this author, #1 bestseller. There must be something in there. And so then, let me hear more, tell me more. And in an ideal world, that's really the first thing that you want to get, is somebody to say, well, tell me more about what you do and how it can help me.
And I love that you say that, because you're right. I don't have specific data on it, but it's probably 1% of the population who's like, I'm only going to work with him because that book is an international bestseller. It's definitely a good feather in the cap. But if you sold 100 copies of the books, but it brought you 100 new clients, and your average client brings you 20 grand a year, it was well worth the effort.
Yep, absolutely. I'd like to add a factor of 10 or 100 to each of those numbers, but absolutely.
Yeah, I was going very small scale, right? Because if you sell it down, scale it up, as they say in marketing. So I'm curious, Guy, what comes next for you? Do you have any other books on the horizon, or are these more as things change and you identify a need, you're like, I'm going to write about this?
Well, I think two things. One is, I think in the immediate term, I'm now going to take this book and I'm just going to do some follow-up interviews to say, hey, we're now post-COVID, and now what's going on? And so I'm going to do some follow-up interviews with a bunch of the folks that I already interviewed, and kind of update the book that way, #1. But the other one is now, as the metaverse really starts to take off, the next book is going to be, the metaversal marketing machine or something like that. Don't know, but it'll definitely be on the metaverse. That's kind of what my vision is right now.
I love it. Guy, where can everyone listening at home, where can they find out more about you, working with you to solve their marketing challenges, purchasing your book? How can they get into your world?
Absolutely. So to purchase the book, it's available on Amazon. So Amazon.com, just look for Guy Powell or Post-COVID Marketing Machine or Marketing Machine, any of those things, and you'll be able to find me. So Post-COVID Marketing Machine on Amazon. My company name is ProRelevant, and the company website is ProRelevant.com. And then specifically to get more information on the book, go to marketingmachine.prorelevant.com, marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. That'll give you more information on the book. And then, of course, ProRelevant.com, more information on me and my company.
Amazing. And we will make sure that we have all of your contact information listed in the show notes. So for everyone listening at home who either couldn't catch that or just didn't have a pen handy, we will make sure that you have everything you need to get in touch with Guy. We really appreciate when you support our guests. Thank you for tuning in. You've spent this time listening to Guy Powell speak about the post-COVID marketing machine here with Matt Harms at Pen for Hire and the Pen Podcast. We will catch you all in the next episode. And Guy, thank you so much once again for your amazing insights today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
It's been a pleasure.